UFC will no longer be the place where people judge fighters as to who the best in the world is.
Let's take two organizations that don't sell tickets and nobody watches, and let's merge them together and make a bigger company that we won't sell tickets to and that nobody will watch.
They're going to rebut with the Netflix deal, you know that?
We'll see what's going on. It was my last fight, and MVP, they always trash talk a little bit about Dana. He doesn't pay. Now we're going to see how they want to pay.
So I feel like Anthony Joshua might have given Jake Paul some serious brain damage, because on Friday, the PFL hosted their landmark event in New York, where they officially announced the MVP PFL merger, but Jake Paul decided to make an absolute fool of himself before, during, and after the event. And even though competition would be a great thing for the fighters, Jake and his business partner Nakisa are completely delusional if they think MVP PFL is going to genuinely compete with the UFC. Because a random UFC fight night in Serbia the next day did more views and bigger ticket sales than PFL's biggest event of the year. In fact, with the card breaking the record for the most finishes and most first round finishes on a UFC card ever, UFC Serbia literally had more first round finishes than PFL had fights. But before we get into the whole Jake Paul thing, even though UFC Serbia was a crazy card, it wasn't without some controversy, because after the card started with 4 straight first round finishes, Super Saiyan Bogdan Grad submitted the criminal from the Bronx, Dennis Bazooka. But was it really a submission? Because Bazooka immediately contested it, and when you look back, it does look like he was maybe trying to just push the knee out of the way. But I'm not going to feel bad for a guy that's been out here getting arrested for robbing regular people and beating them to a pulp. Plus, he was getting dominated anyway, and him pushing that knee was most likely just going to make the arm triangle worse. But it's officially settled. A Brazilian paratrooper beats a Welsh gangster because, surprise, surprise, Oban Elalot loses again. But to be fair, the UFC handed him a nightmare matchup. Michael Oliveira is an undefeated, shredded Brazilian monster who is either crazy strong or Elalot has the worst chin in the welterweight division, because Oliveira dropped Elalot with a jab, then again with a 1-2, before spreading him out with a series of right hands. Now, a lot of people feel like Michael Oliveira could be a top contender, and maybe that's true, but I don't know if he has enough time to become a champion, because he's already 36 and welterweight is so stacked right now. But he did use his Octagon interview perfectly, taking the opportunity to say he'll step in for Jeff Neal, who pulled out against Chidian Jokwani at UFC 330. That Philly card definitely needs some better matchups added to it, because the Serbia main card had more than triple the ranked male fighters on it than UFC 330 does. So I have a feeling he'll be in the UFC's good books if they can make it happen. The other weird moment from the prelims was the referee getting tangled up between Tofik Musayev finishing Ludovic Klein before missing at least 5 back of the head shots while trying to get himself unstuck. But I'm so glad that Bogdan Guskov got moved from his match with Jan Blachowicz to fight Big Oink last week, because Navajo Sterling, whose first name is actually Rongo Tehengia, took out Jan Blachowicz in a fight that was more exciting in one round than all 5 rounds of last week's main event. Because Navajo took the fight on short notice, got dropped by a jab to the eye early, but came back, rocked Jan bad with a right hand, pushed him over, and finished him up with nasty elbows and ground and pound that split Jan open before the referee pulled him off. Pereira, Ankalaev, and Olberg couldn't do what Navajo did, although the commentators were saying while Jan was walking out that he couldn't lift weights anymore because of the pain, so maybe he is too old now. But then why did the UFC re-sign him to a new contract? Probably just to keep him from going to MVP PFL, right? But Navajo had a good call out saying, if Costa or Roundtree want to fight before the year ends, you know who to call. 0800, I'ma whoop that ass. But in the main event, Uros Medic took D-Rod out in 30 seconds, proving once and for all that prison is not the best base for fighting. So Uros got his heartwarming mic moment in front of the Serbian crowd because it was his first time home in 5 years. But then he had a fiery call out of Leon Edwards, telling him to get his head out of wherever he's hiding because he wants to be the next one to knock Leon out. I'd love to see that fight, but I'd be shocked if Leon takes it. I think JDM could be another awesome next matchup for Medic if Leon ducks him. But back to the MVP PFL merger delusion. Don't get me wrong, Usman Nurmagomedov is clearly a great fighter and had a great first round knockout against Justin Gaethje's undefeated teammate Archie Colgan. But for Jake Paul's business partner to say that the best 2 lightweights in the world didn't fight at the White House, but instead fought at PFL New York on Friday, has to be the most retarded shit I've ever heard.
That's what you call the best 155-pound fighter in the world. The best fighters in the world didn't fight back at the White House. They fought here tonight. Usman. That's our guy. That's the future of MVP MMA.
Like, do you seriously think that Usman Nurmagomedov would have knocked out Ilia Topuria or Justin Gaethje in the first round, let alone win? The hardest fights Usman have had were 2 decision wins against Paul Hughes, a guy that Tapology ranks as the number 55 lightweight in the world. The co-main event was between 15-0 Dakota Dacheva and 9-5 Denise Kielholtz. All the PFL matchups are either massive mismatches or between a guy that's like a foot taller than the other guy. The big light heavyweight fight to kick off the main card, Mustafa Diakate versus Darrell Walker, was between a 5-0 guy and a 2-0 guy. They literally had less than 10 professional fights between the two of them. By the way, is it just me or does Diakate look exactly like the coach from Never Back Down? But this was the final fight on Usman Nurmagomedov's contract, and Jake Paul had to completely ruin the moment because he tried to awkwardly peer pressure Usman into staying with the PFL, but ended up looking like a guy begging his girlfriend not to leave him. First, Khabib literally snatched the championship belt out of Jake's hands just to wrap it around Usman himself. Then Jake crashed the post-fight interview, but Usman immediately put him on the spot by asking if he was getting a bonus for his first round knockout. Because even though the PFL abandoned its $1 million tournament format and moved to the UFC model years ago, they still don't offer performance bonuses. So Jake was backed into a corner. But how did Jake handle the pressure? He awkwardly told Usman that if he gets a finish in his next PFL fight, he'll buy him a car. This guy is trying to turn the PFL into the Price is Right. But Usman wasn't having it. He looked right at him and said, "Brother, let's talk about today because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow." Not so subtly hinting to Jake that his next fight could very likely not be with the PFL. So Jake started pleading, "But we want the future. Come on, congratulations. Hey, you might get the bonus. Come on." But it gets worse. When Dan Hardy asked Usman what was next, Usman dropped all the subtlety. He basically told Jake to back up the money truck, saying, "We'll see. This was my last fight, and MVP always talked trash about Dana, saying how he doesn't pay. Now we're gonna see how they want to pay."
How much you want?
Okay, congrats for MVP and PFL, yeah? Yes, this is first of all. What about the bonus, brother? First round, knockout.
Here's what we say. Next fight, we're watching. Everyone tune in. Next fight, if you get a knockout, I buy you a car.
Brother, let's talk about today because we don't know what's gonna tomorrow.
Usman, talk to me about what comes next for you.
We'll see.
Just engage you.
We'll see what's going on. It was my last fight, and MVP, they always trash talk a little bit about Dana. He doesn't pay. Now we're gonna see how they wanna pay.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise.
Jake couldn't even look him in the eyes when he shook his hand after that. Also, what was this motherfucker wearing? He's 29 but looked like a hipster grandpa trying to fit in at the skate park. No wonder the crowd was booing him every time he spoke and started a "fuck Jake Paul" chant. You know, people love to talk trash about the UFC's fighter pay, and it could obviously be a lot better, but they now give $100K for every performance of the night, and there were 4 handed out just on Saturday, plus $25K for every finish on the card. Jake Paul's been an owner of PFL for over 3 years now, and other than Francis Ngannou scamming them out of a big bag, I haven't seen any evidence of PFL fighters making more money than UFC fighters. Like, get this, one of the fighters in their main event last month made $10,000. 10 grand for the main event. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Dana's been a broken record about these mergers, but he's right. This is what he said back when PFL and Bellator merged, well after Jake Paul had become a part owner already.
What do you make of the PFL buying Bellator? PFL is now saying that, they're the co-leader. They believe that the roster is comparable to the UFC's. So what do you make of the whole situation?
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm asking you.
No comment? You have no comment? You want me to comment? It's fucking hilarious. But, yeah, good for them. I wish them all the luck in the world.
Very cool. And Oscar mentioned
I've covered this before. You must not have heard it. One shitty organization that sells no tickets and nobody watches buys another shitty organization that sells no tickets and nobody watches. Sounds like a fucking winner to me, boy. Right? Woo!
Don't get me wrong, I don't want the UFC to have a monopoly on the fighters, so I'm glad that the MVP PFL merger is happening and that Jake Paul has made the fighter pay thing such a public spectacle. Because here's the thing, I don't think that MVP PFL is going to be able to compete with the UFC, and they're probably going to lose Usman Nurmagomedov as well. But if MVP starts offering fighters serious real money contracts, the UFC is going to have to respond, which they obviously have the money to do, which means all your favorite fighters and even the up and coming guys you've never heard of are probably about to start getting paid a lot more. But that's it, man. If you like these weekly recaps, recaps, please consider liking and subscribing for more. I also make a lot of other MMA content if you wanted to check it out, but can you let me know in the comments what you think about this MVP PFL merger, or how you felt about the two cards over the weekend? Or if you just want to trash Jake Paul, honestly, I'm here for that too. I respond to absolutely every single comment, and it all really helps the channel grow, so I appreciate any support.